This meeting is being recorded.
Jake, yeah, disappointing result, but also the performance. Guys just seemed to miss quite a lot of tackles and just couldn't get going.
Yeah, Chuck, I mean, obviously, look, I think sometimes you get a bad day at the office. You know, we let them, we've obviously in the last couple of games, we've got good starts and we've got some points on the board tonight. We had to play catch up and it was a bit difficult. You know, I think the pace of the 4G and the accuracy of Glasgow, and I think their physicality at times was just probably, you know, caught us and we have obviously had to play catch up. So, you know, all credit to them. I mean, I think everyone knows it's a tough competition. There's no easy games. You know, I think, you know, even going to Italy now is a difficult task. So, you know, there's no doubt. But I think, Ashfaq, you know, I've said it many times, and I don't want to sound like there's more test caps in that team than there are URC caps in our team. You know, so things must, you know, people have to be a little bit more, I suppose, understanding of the fact that we're still very, very young as a group. That doesn't take anything away from the fact I told our players tonight that it's not an excuse. And when you play well, you know, when you play well, you get rewards. When you play badly and you let teams play well against you, you don't get those rewards. So yeah, it's obviously a massive disappointment. But we got to get up tomorrow morning and get to Munster because it doesn't get any easier.
Jack, just quickly also, you know, just thinking back now after the game, it felt almost like the Benetton game, that first one, that Rainbow Cup final, where you guys were sort of, you know, caught unawares. But this time around, I mean, you made the final last year. You guys have played in 4G pitch. Well, what do you put it down to, that passiveness? And was it the travel played a part, or what do you put it down to?
Yeah, Ashfaq, look, I'm not going to make excuses and say the travel. And I mean, the Lions came here, they went 27 hours to get to Wales, ended up winning 3 of their games. So, I mean, it can be done. No, we just weren't good enough, Ashfaq. I mean, it's very simple. We weren't good enough. We looked like young boys tonight. And yeah, we missed some tackles and we gave them a good start. They played really well in the beginning of the game. They hung onto the ball for long periods of time. They put us under pressure. They got some good momentum early on. They scored a try quickly, which again makes it much tougher when they got a home crowd there. So, I mean, everything that I suppose they could get in their favor worked for them. And we then found it hard, you know. So, but, you know, there's a positive. We didn't get any injuries. We did score, you know, 14 points in the second half after they were so far ahead. And had it been for 1 or 2 options, we might have been able to get 2 bonus points there because we were close to scoring a 4th try. And that would have made us within 7 and obviously 4 tries, which means 2 points. So those are the margins. But we didn't get that. So, you know, now we got to, as I said, we got to get up on Monday and prepare for Munster.
Jake, apart from the lack of physicality, which Ashfaq has mentioned and you've mentioned, I counted 9 times when you were inside their 22, and the ball was either lost in an attacking breakdown or coughed up, or that's got to be a major concern.
Yeah, it's got to be a concern from a coaching point of view, but also, I mean, it's a worrying concern because they didn't seem to concede anything in our 22, you know. So, yeah, I just, you know, as I said, every time, you're quite right, Ken, every time we got into their 22, it was almost like, you know, there was something that was going to go wrong. I mean, I thought, as I said, we scored a charge down try and then they go back and look at something else. And, you know, I don't know what Marco had to do, and same as Ulrich. I mean, what was he supposed to do? He tackles the guy pulls him down towards him, he gets a yellow card. I mean, it's but again, I don't think those are the reasons we lost, Ken. I don't think when we gave them a good start, we played poorly. We weren't up for it. We looked a bit lethargic. We looked a bit young. So I don't want to blame the fact that the yellow card here or a little call there, or as you say, maybe 2 or 3 calls on the try line went against us, and therefore the result could have been different. But, you know, it's something that we're going to have to accept. It's a tough competition. When you travel, this is like European Cup rugby, Ken. You know, it reminded me, I brought Montpellier once and we played Glasgow in a Challenge Cup game, and we struggled because it's a tough place to play. And when you come here to these European teams and you catch them on a good night, you're up against it. So all credit to Glasgow, they played really well. I think it's important to note, Ken, they lost once last year at home, and they haven't lost once this year at home yet. So this is a very good hunting ground for them, and they like playing here. And they're going to make it difficult for teams that are going to come here and play against them in Glasgow.
Thanks, Kenny. Jan?
Yeah, Jake, just to follow up on what you just said. I mean, it's understandable. This is obviously not the Bulls standard that we've seen for the last 18 months or so. Do you crack the whip after a game like this, or do you take introspection, step back a bit and say, we can do better and just play it softly? I mean, which way is the current Jake going?
Yeah, Jan, look, I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. I just said, look, I'm disappointed, and they know I'm disappointed, but they themselves are disappointed too. And, I'm not a coach who shouts and screams and belittles them now and tries to break them down. We've got a long tour, we've got a long season. One poor performance doesn't mean you're not going to win the competition. Last year, this time, we had won one game. So, I mean, the margins are small. And so to answer your question, Jan, I mean, I'm not, as I said, Monday morning, we're going to back on the training field. We're going to do some homework on Munster. It's not going to get any easier. Munster are under the pump. I think they've lost 3 of their 4 games. They also got a great record at home. Lots and lots of international experience. So, yeah, to answer your question, Jan, I'm not going to shout and scream, and we'll work it out together. As a group, we'll work it out together with the coaches, the players. I can't fast forward experience, and I can't fast forward age. You consider, Ludwig is 21, Elric Lowe is 22, Jan Hendrik Wessel's 21. I mean, that's what I've got. Unfortunately, that's what you've got to work with. And I'm saying, unfortunately, we can't fast forward that. But I know that if we spend some time and they learn through these performances, and they get to understand how tough this comp is, Jan, then they're going to become better players. And that's all I can wish for, is that they take some learning out of these performances.
Thanks, Jan. Caleb?
Yeah, Jack. Jake, you mentioned a lot about travel. Just a quick one. How do you think that's impacting you? And you said when the competition was sold to you guys, travel was going to be less than going to Australia and New Zealand. Have you voiced that? And is there anything that's
many times, Caleb, many times, and I'm not going to voice it again. I mean, I think it's obvious to say I wouldn't have wanted to come here on Monday night. I would have preferred to fly here directly to London and got here on Thursday, and spend time at home preparing. That's how I would have done it if I was an international coach. I would have done it like that as well. So, and to be fair, I spoke to Rassie about it. He agreed with me. He agreed that the way to do it is to come late, prepare as long as you can back home. So even he, who's won a World Cup and obviously understands rugby and travel, would have agreed with me. So yeah, Caleb, but as I said, it's not an excuse. We've got to look at it. I think there's no doubt in my mind we'll look at how South African sides, because it's not an excuse, but I can tell you what, it's a massive bonus if you fly business class overnight and get to London, as opposed to flying via the rest of the world and coming here after 24 hours by bus. It's not, I can tell you, their players have got stiff backs, and they, the physios, and then you have limited amounts of staff you can bring as well, because you can't bring everybody. So then you have limited amounts of physios who can look after your extended squad who are going to be here for 3 weeks. So yeah, Caleb, it's something that I'm looking after the Bulls, and I'm looking after the way we can become professional, and I'm looking after the way we can perform. And I'm not saying we didn't perform because of that, but if it means it's going to help us, then we've got to find a way in which we can get better travel arrangements to give us better chances to win.
Thank you, Caleb. Are there any Ashfaq?
Just in terms of the extra rugby on the pitch, I mean, you mentioned some of the calls there. The refereeing at times, especially if you lose, you don't want to blame the referee, but some of the calls were hard to understand. You're going forward and you're 2 meters from the line, and then you get blown up. again, is that now something that you have to address with Tapa Henning and go through that process?
Yeah, well, that's like the nice thing is Tapa was here tonight. So, I mean, I suppose he will also have his views, and he was watching the game. I mean, he obviously lives in Scotland. So, yeah, I mean, that is a concern. I can't understand how every time we get 5 minutes from their try line, it looked almost as though we made a mistake. And then literally every time they got near our try line, they got everything right. So, I mean, either we've got to look and see what they're doing and try and copy them, or we're going to find a reason why we're not getting it right. You know, we've been very accurate in the 22 in the last couple of games. We scored lots of tries, you know, in the 22 with our forwards. And tonight we looked as though we didn't really have an idea of what we were getting wrong. But the thing that concerned me the most is, I mean, Ulrich Lowe tackles the number 9. The number 9 pulls him on the ground. They both get yellow cards. I mean, I don't quite understand the logic in that. I look at that clip and I go, what do you want Ulrich to do? You know, he tackles the guys on top of the guy. He's trying to get away. He gets pulled down. He gets a yellow card. You know, I mean, it's you know, when I look at things like that, and I look at this allowed try because Marcu's now got some, you know, I mean, how many times did they clean us past the ball and they were lying on top of us past the ball? They cleaned our number 9 once or twice. You know, you're not allowed to touch the number 9. You know, and there was more than one occasion where Zach Burger was played by a defender. So, but again, it's something that we're going to have to look at, Ashfaq. It's not going to get any easier. You'll see when teams tour both ways. You know, I'm sure when they come to us, they feel as though things don't go their way, and that's the nature of this comp. And we're going to have to find a way in which we can get some middle ground. I think that's the ideal. You know, and also it's a challenge for us South African sides, because we have to adapt to the refereeing. It's no different. I mean, I've been in this job a long time, and when we first went into international rugby, we also had the same complaints about, you know, why does it happen like that when we're away from home, and is it interpreted differently? You know, and we had to adapt. We've won 2 World Cups since then, or 3 World Cups since I've been involved in rugby. So, I mean, we have the ability to get that right.
Thanks, Ashfaq. Jan?
Thank you. Jake, just a follow-up. What aspects would you, I mean, you've now said you're going to have to sit and obviously look at it with your coaches and stuff, but what aspects do you think, given the lack of experience, do you need to address most? And we got a week to go.
Yeah, look, Jan, I mean, I don't think it's as simple as that. You know, you're right on the board, let's get these 4 things right and we'll end up winning a game. You know, as I continue to tell you, I mean, I can't fast forward experience, and I can't fast forward age. You know, I've always been I've always told you from the day I got this job, the one thing that concerns me is that the players between the ages of 26 and 28 are not playing in South Africa. Tonight we saw it again. I mean, Sintu Manjezi, who's now 26, 27 years old, is playing against us. You know, and Ollie Kebble, older, playing against us. They're all in South Africa. You know, and I mean, I know Ollie is actually Scottish representative, but the point is that's the kind of boy that would have been playing for us 10 years ago. And Jan, as I said, I can't fast forward the age, and I can't fast forward the experience, but you know, I stand in the change room and I'm basically coaching a sort of a varsity cup team that would have played 5-6 years ago. Yes, there's a couple of guys like Bismarck and Mornay, and people would argue, but generally the average age of our team, you know, look at them, they varsity cup players of 10 years ago, you know. And you know, I just chatted to Franco after the game. You know, you got Gray, and you've got, you know, Ferguson, and you've got, you know, players that are playing for Scotland. They men, and you know, I was always young. I was always understanding of the fact that we're gonna have games where we're gonna look like youngsters. But the positive thing is they're gonna learn, you know. And I'm gonna tell you that in 4 years' time, when I've got Jan Hendrik, who's got 100 games, and I've got, you know, Mornay Smith has got 100 games, and I've got Gerard Steenekamp's got 100 games in URC, and you know, and the list continues. The Ulrich Lowe's and the Ruan Nokias and the, you know, the Kirtley Orances. Then all of a sudden we will be a power side. But it doesn't mean that we're going to lie down and die. Yeah? It just means that we're going to have to put this in our memory bank and make sure that we find ways with the coaches and the players to get better. That's it, just to get better.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jan. Caleb?
Yeah, Jake, just to follow up on that experience, you play Munster, Benetton, then you do Sharks, then you've got Ospreys. So certainly you're gonna have a lot of international caps in those teams again, and possibly you're gonna lose some of your players to the box squad, especially having an A side going. How does that late October fixture list look for you, especially considering that you're losing some to injury with Spoon Kosi and Kenan Moody out, which they might still not be there if they get called up the Springboks if they get fit earlier. How does that look for you? Because you're going to struggle with the young team you mentioned.
Well, I mean, yeah, Caleb, that's why you've got to. I mean, that's why you've got to build a team. I mean, it's not as easy as I said. You just copy and paste. You know, you've got to build a team, and it's not doom and gloom, guys. I mean, I get the feeling you think because we've lost to Glasgow tonight, that's the end of our season. You know, there's so much rugby left to play. This time last year, as I said, after 6 games, we won 1. So this competition goes on, and I think the fact that Glasgow beat us shows that, you know, it shows that Glasgow can beat anybody. You know, I mean, we were finalists last year. We beat them at Loftus. They beat us tonight. You know, they also lost 1 or 2 games they feel they should have won. But that's the nice thing about URC. It's such a tough comp. You know, there's no guarantees you go to Benetton and you win. There's no guarantee you go to Sharks and win. You know, there's no guarantee. Even the Dragons the other day, I mean, they came within a point of beating the Sharks as well. So, yeah, I've got no doubt this competition will get tougher and tougher as we get closer to the playoffs. And who knows, maybe we play Glasgow again.
Thank you, Caleb. Ken?
No, I lowered my hand. Thanks, Lunga. I suppose, Jake, if there is one other positive to come out of today, the guys scrummed very well, didn't they?
Yeah, Ken. I mean, that's, you know, as I said, in every game, remember our scrum's been a bit fragile and people have commented about our scrum. And tonight, I thought we scrummed really well, you know, especially at the back end of the game as well. I mean, a guy like Simpiwe came on, as I said last week, he hasn't had much time because of his injuries. He had a lower leg injury, which means that as a prop, you can't really scrum. You can do some upper body strength, but you can't scrum. So I'm glad he came through tonight, Ken. And and as I said, that second front row I thought played really well, scrummed well, and that bodes well for next week as well, because I think that Munster got, obviously, you know, they've got a lot of international players, you know, as Caleb said just now, and we're going to have to up our game. You know, there's no doubt that they're hurting the players. I mean, they don't like losing, and no one does. So we'll be fine. You know, we'll get up on Monday morning, or tomorrow morning we'll start traveling, and on Monday morning we'll put our heads together and we'll get a team together that we think is going to be able to beat Munster.
Thank you so much, Coach. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cheers, Jake.
Thanks, Jake.
Thanks, guys. Sorry we're late. Thank you.
Cheers, Jack. Thanks, guys. Cheers. Bye.